The president of the Ogun State chapter of the Nigerian Library Association, all protocols observed, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, fellow colleagues. It is a great pleasure that I stand before you today virtually to talk to you about issues affecting our noble profession and sharing our experiences from the other side of the ocean. My name is Innocent Awasom, and I am of the Texas Tech University Libraries. And I want to express my appreciation to Michael Fogborn for reaching out to me for this opportunity which I couldn't turn on because you are my fellow brothers and sisters in this noble profession. In fact, I am a product of the University of Ibadan. I spent quite some time at the University of Ibadan in my undergraduate and graduate degrees in zoology, and eventually was part of the pioneers of the African Regional Center for Information Science, ARCIS. It's an offshoot of the library school at the University of Ibadan. From then, I moved to other places, notably Cameroon, Kenya, United States, and it's been a wonderful ride thus far. And my education in Nigeria prepared me for all the challenges that I met ahead. And believe you me, I was equal to the task. And so I want to express my gratitude to my base, University of Ibadan, and the great country of Nigeria for training us thus far and sending us far and wide to bear her banners. And hopefully we're doing justice to that. So today, I'm going to talk to you about engaging invisible information users in this era of COVID. Sharing experience from my university, Texas Tech University, which is in Lubbock. And so the outline, I'm going to just a brief introduction to my university system, the perception and how we approached news of the pandemic, how we prepared. And it's all basically about information infrastructure. The SWOT analysis that we did, and then the preparations going forward. There was internal and external services, and the impact that this had on our budgeting and all that. And with COVID came an added responsibility to our original role of providing access to and use of information, use and dissemination of information. So with the COVID-19 pandemic, we're supposed to, as information professionals, provide updates to our patrons. We also had to provide information that was going to counter fake news, pseudoscience, and thus an emphasis on information, digital or media literacy. And now going forward, our new normal. What is our new normal? How are we engaged in the new normal? And I will conclude by talking about our role, the proactive role that we have to play henceforth, and this revolves around embedded librarianship, which we'll talk some more. So this is my university library, and it's in the center of the campus, contains over 40 million records, both print and electronic. It's huge, 6-story building, This is the main floor, open reading space. And then the other floors are all stacks, but with other rooms and stuff for reading. But with the pandemic, of course, they had to recalibrate percentage, had to cut down to, from the get-go, 25% to 40%, and now it's at 50% capacity. So we have the main campus library, the architectural library, the Southwest Special Collections Library. We've got the Vietnam Center, or the Sam Johnson Vietnam Archives. So we all know about you've heard about the Vietnam War. The Global Archives for the Vietnam War is here at this university. We also have the Health Science Center Library, which is the Health Library, and then the Law Library. So with the COVID, all departments in the library were involved, but these are the key departments that had to play a major role. The Research, Instruction, and Outreach Department that interacts with students and faculty and staff with a lot of outreach and engagement, teaching. The Library Technology Management Services, they are the ones behind the technology and all of that. The Resource Management and Systems, that has to do with technical services, cataloging, and all the fine stuff. And then the User Access Services, that's to do with reserves. Reserves where we put documents on hold for people to consult in place, interlibrary loan, and e-book learning. We are pioneers in the era of e-book learning. Colleagues have worked on software that can facilitate learning e-books, which was not done before. And so that one is working pretty well in our interest. But you agree with me that all of this, with the COVID, that kind of necessitated a move from the physical environment to the virtual environment, needed a robust information infrastructure. And when we talk about information infrastructure, it encompasses so many things. I take this quote from Professor Aipeku, my supervisor, way back in 1996. And he defined information infrastructure as making reference to the complex set of institutions and ideologies that includes human and material resources essential to the generation and dissemination of scholarly information. So it is about physical entities put in place primarily for information purposes, requiring constant maintenance, else obsolescence would occur, particularly for technologically intensive amenities. This is where we're centered on. And so the need, because of COVID and a transition to the virtual environment, the need for high-speed internet connectivity and broadband access cannot be emphasized. This also comes with cost of access to students who are off campus, probably requiring Wi-Fi and all that, because the campus is wired. It's a Wi-Fi free campus, but now students dispersed all over the world, there are issues of connectivity that is related to costs. So when news in March of the pandemic broke, how did we react to it? There was panic, of course, with the fight or flight mode. And generally, the university administration, especially the library administration, emphasis was on students, faculty, and staff safety. So priority was given to the safety. And so when news broke out of China, and it's spreading gradually in China, knowing that it was going to spread around the world, with direct flights from China to the United States daily, it was just a matter of time. So there's an emergency meeting at all levels. Was it possible for faculty to work from home? What does this take? Do they have access to broadband at home, Wi-Fi? And also, decisions had to be made about essential staff. Who are essential staff? Essential staff are the people who, no matter what is happening, have to be able to report to work. And they are in the technology department, they're in the access services. They have to open up the building, they have to control the buildings, control the temperature, and then those who are there in the technology will have to monitor the technology, because if it stops, everything stops. And so they have to be on the clock. So whether the people are in, essential staff will have to become. With no reported cases yet, all face-to-face meetings were suspended, and we had to start learning how to do broad meetings via Skype or Zoom, and we had to look at that technology and learn fast. Secondly, the library had to do a SWOT analysis, and this is a management tool which we use to be able to assess and plan for unforeseen circumstances. So the SWOT analysis, SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So it's a strategic planning technique that is used by organizations to identify their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, so as to facilitate informed, critical decisions in management and planning. So each unit had to do that, and generally put together, these are the strengths of the library. They got skilled staff and faculty. They got extensive in-house and distance support, and they got a rich print and digital collection. What about the weakness? Is there enough capacity to support the services from home? That means, all the faculty who are working from home, do they have the facilities to facilitate, to enable them work from home? Of course, everybody's got a computer. Do they have high-speed internet connectivity? Does everybody have that? It is important to be able to think on that. And another end to that is the technology challenges that are going to be faced by faculty and staff, because not everybody is at the same technological level, and so those who had challenges had to be brought up to speed for the kind of things that we're going to do. The opportunities, it's time to optimize overboard digital technology initiatives. It's also time to think about developing open educational resources and more open access initiatives, open science and the like, and also increase service outreach and engagement, because this is the time to reach out. Students are spread out. You have to reach out to the students. You have to reach out to the community. And we got students all over the world. So we've got to do outreach and engage them where they are. And the threats. With all of what is happening, we would need more money, funding to build a more robust digital collections. Another threat, which is pretty critical, is students' inability to access the resources. When students are on campus, of course we know we have students from different socioeconomic backgrounds, and so the school or the institution provides a cushion for all that, because we learn laptops, like we learn books, and so a student must not necessarily have a laptop to be able to continue their studies. We have laptops that you can check out and use and return. The students are at home. Do they have the necessary facilities? For example, do they have internet connectivity? If they're in a rural area, do they have access to that? So these are things which would impact how they're going to study. And so they have to take into consideration students who will not have those facilities, and what will be done for them? Would they be retained on campus? Some were kept on campus. And of course, there is decreased enrollment. This is pretty big because with COVID, there was no admission for fall. Admission numbers reduced considerably, and most institutions have a high revenue from international students fees. And so international students were not able to come to school. They were not able to stay around and spend money in the local communities because with COVID, they had to go back home and there were restrictions on coming back. So a holistic SWOT analysis helped us to make decisions going forward. And so there were preparations. So the internal preparations, what did we do? The research and reference support services had to transition online almost immediately. Collection development was suspended, so all physical transactions had to be suspended. No physical book transfers and all that. We had to invest in streaming video packages and e-book packages because the bulk of our information provision and dissemination was online. So there was need to convert print funds to electronic resources. Physical stacks were closed to the public in all locations. Study space was also closed, and library was closed to all except essential staff in the building and technology component. So these are all internal preparations that had to be made and had to go into effect. No, this happened in March, and these decisions had to be made in less than a month. So all of this had an impact on our budgeting because the library funding model is based on student fees than university grants. So the more students we have, the more money is allocated for library, other library functions. The bulk of it comes from there, and then the government the institution will subsidize. So virtual education affected campus enrollment, and so there was bound to be adjustments. So an austerity budget was put in place, and with these budgetary adjustments, certain areas suffered because there was need for more funding for increased electronic resources or the digital collection. All of this now brought in new roles for librarians and information professionals. Our traditional role has been to teach our patrons how to access, how to use, and how to disseminate credible information in an ethical manner. We are now faced with a situation where, aside from providing all of the information, we also needed to provide credible information on credible COVID updates, because with that there was a lot of peddling of fake news, pseudoscience, and this was not helped by a polarized political climate. We provide information, and so we had to dig further to get information provided to not only our students doing research, but also the general public. So it was incumbent on us, especially those of us as STEM librarians, to review CDC guidelines, CDC Center for Disease Control guidelines, the World Health Organization guidelines, and other credible information sources, and then provide visible link on the library website. Because of all of this, there's increased need for information literacy, for digital literacy, and for media literacy. Because there's a lot of stuff that comes online, whether it's via the media, YouTube, and all that, or it's just the electronic or digital media. There's a lot there, and so we need to be able to educate people on how to sift through, how to determine what is credible and what is not credible. Provide websites to counter-check all of that. So those are added roles to our roles on research, and outreach to our students. So we had to, based on all of this, we had to become more or less embedded librarians. Because with online teaching, embedded librarians are librarians who are knowledgeable in information literacy and technology and are able to be embedded within the virtual environment to help the students. And so we co-taught with teachers, were implanted in classes, and we're able to do virtual referencing, chat services, literally, I wouldn't say round the clock, but a good chunk of the day, because working from home, we do not have that fixed schedule anymore because our students are all over the world. Being a STEM librarian, the bulk of our STEM students, especially like graduate students, some of them are from outside, Asia, Africa. And with the time zones, you have to be on. So there are times when you're working at home, working with kids, and you're distracted with kids, you have to get on, and then you take a nap late into the day, and you work a good chunk into the night. So literally working round the clock. So we have to brace up for the new normal. And the picture on the screen you can see there is Royals College, is a Karma, it's an international class. They were doing something on STEM and business, and I had to be part of this class, and we had students from all over the world. And this class was at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is maybe 6 hours, that makes it up to 2 a.m. Nigerian time. So what is our new normal now? We're bracing up for distance education, which is exclusively online. Fortunately, my institution, certain departments were already big on distance education, like agricultural education, education itself. Again, distance education will not cut it out because some people are not meant for online education. And so there will be the hybrid, where it is a mix of synchronous and asynchronous educational systems. Face-to-face, which is the traditional and the backbone, is almost nearing an endangered species status. So the new normal now is revising library funding models so that it should not be based on fees, student fees alone, because it's dwindling. So writing grants, getting the consortial agreements, encouraging faculty members writing grants to write in subscription to the journals that they're going to be working on, journals that they're going to use for their research. And so if they have a subscription for 2 years, that kind of frees up some money that we can use in another area, and so on and so forth. So it's such a draft game, and that's a new reality. And so for parting thoughts, because we got to leave time for questions, we'll say that the pandemic has brought out the worst and the best in humanity. Library resilience and transformative ability in the face of adversity for the common good and for continuing and continuing and enhancing scholarship. Libraries have got to build their websites, because the websites are virtual keys and the gate to the gate of knowledge, and it should be calibrated to fit students' usage. Some students would access it from their laptops, some will access it from their cell phones. So we need to be able to do that, and there should be equity in all of this, because our students who are handicapped, either visual or auditory. They'll have to make sure you configure in such a way that they can have their fair share. For example, visual students, when they're using emojis, it should be limited in all of what they do because it kind of affects them. It's like shouting on them, you know. So we should also be proactive in our role henceforth and embracing embedded librarianship. It is very important because that is what we all are. We should also think about the diminishing value of print collections. There's need for external storage to create more room, more room or digital space, because we need more, say, physical space as social distancing and all of that. The library is fast becoming a social hub, and so we need more space to provide for adequate self-distancing, social distancing, and keep our functions going. There's also been the loss of in-person customer service experience. So self-service models and all other virtual alternatives, all for the sake of safety of all. Disappearance of public technology, because we can't have any physical contacts. People can't loan computers, they can't loan all the other technologies that they were able to. Also, it has brought in the awareness and the need for the promotion of open educational resources. Open educational resources provides for anytime, anywhere access. We break down all these paywalls, subscriptions, so that we can have open content, open science, and all of this that is being promoted by the Scholarly Publishing and Academic Resources Coalition, SPAC. They want the sharing of knowledge across board. This has also brought in a new role for librarians as advocates and activists for increased support, for safety, and funding. You know, most libraries have been taken hostage by the vendors and publishers. The spiral increase in journal subscriptions, database subscriptions. But COVID has exposed the need to end multi-layer licensing, multi-year licensing. And vendors like Elsevier, institutions across the world are fighting Shylock vendors like Elsevier and the rest. I want to say disaster management. COVID has proven to us that we can never be ready. And so what we're taking time to do for 5 years, COVID has made us to ramp up and do that in less than a year. So disasters generally call for resilience and transformation in leadership and technology in libraries. We have all this transformation for the common good. I'm hoping that as librarians, we'll be able to rise up to the challenge because we provide those services, and without this key role, there would be that lacking within the information provision, within the access to the dissemination, access to the provision and dissemination of credible information in an ethical manner to our students. I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to taking your questions.